Here we are, we're gonna measure my butt on YouTube. Hey guys, Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. Now we know how important having a comfortable saddle on your bike is. It could be the difference between you falling in love with cycling and struggling to fall in love with cycling. It's really that important. There's so many different types of saddles out there. So in today's video, we wanted to give you some tips for how to buy the correct saddle. Now there's lots of different saddles out there, but we can usually group them into two main categories. I'd be calling them racing and comfort. So let's talk about the two options we've got here. When I'm looking at the racing saddles here, to me, they tend to look relatively small. They might not look like the most comfortable thing, but when we're talking about racing, we're talking more about performance, which is sort of what brings us into the other category where we might talk about these more comfort saddles. You can just tell by looking with your eye that this is a much bigger saddle. It's thicker, it's just designed around comfort. Not the fastest thing for sprinting over the finish line, but that's not this person's goal. Step one to finding the correct saddle is getting the correct width. We can see these two are obviously very different. This one's quite wide and this one's quite narrow. So we need to measure your actual pelvic bones that you're sitting on when you're riding so that we can work out whether we need to be in this saddle or whether we'll be happy on this saddle here. To measure your sit bones, there's two ways that we can do it. One way is to go to the local bike shop and they might have a sort of gel heat map that you can sit on and then they can measure it and everything and rah, rah, rah. Option two, which is the one that we're gonna run through in today's video, is how to do it at home. So what we're gonna need to measure our pelvic sit bones is a piece of cardboard, a ruler, and a pencil. I like to rest it up against the side of a bench here. I recommend having a hard bench, not a soft couch or something like that. Something nice and hard that you can sit up on. And to keep your balance, I'm gonna have a little stool here. All I'm gonna do is I'm literally gonna sit on this piece of cardboard and we're gonna measure my butt on YouTube, which I never thought that I was gonna say that out loud, but here we are, we're gonna measure my butt on YouTube. So what I wanna do is I literally just wanna make sure that I sit down onto the piece of cardboard and I've got my legs sort of raised up nice and high so that I'm not sitting on the soft part of my bum, I'm sitting on the bones inside my bum. And I'm sort of gonna pull myself down onto this piece of cardboard so that I can try and make a bit of an indent into that piece of cardboard, and that's what we're gonna measure. You might wanna sit here for 30 seconds or so, just long enough so that we can indent that piece of cardboard. 2 or 3 seconds might not be enough here. You might wanna spend a good 30 seconds just sitting here and pulling yourself down onto it. All right, so now that it's been about 30 seconds, we can jump straight off and have a look at what the piece of cardboard looks like. So now that I've jumped off, I can see that there's two clear indentations here from both of my sit bones, both of my pelvic bones. They're a little bit difficult to see. So if we grab our pencil, we can try and make it a little bit easier just by shading it in. Which it's probably quite difficult to see on camera. To make this easier to see on camera, I'm just gonna circle the two bits that I can see with my human eyes rather than my camera eyes. You don't need to do this. I'm just doing this to make it a little bit easier in the video. It's probably quite difficult to see on camera, but I can see them pretty clearly both with my eyes. I can see where the lines that I've drawn dip down, especially when I'm on an angle like this. So this is perfect for me to measure with my ruler now. Once you've worked out where both of the sit bones are, I recommend with your pencil, just putting a dot right in the center of each of those circles there, because this is the measurement that we're gonna make now with our ruler. We're gonna measure from point to point. My butt, for anybody interested at home, is about 128 millimeters wide. 128, there's my answer. Now that we've got our measurement, we can walk into our local bike shop and tell them, hi, Mr. Saddle salesperson, I need a saddle that's 128 millimeters wide. Most brands tend to have different size options of saddle. It's never really much more than maybe 2 or 3 different width options that they do. All I'm saying here is try and find a saddle that's as close to that number as you can. If you can get close to that number, it should be a pretty good saddle for you. So now that we've worked out what width we need, now we need to talk about what shape that we want. Now this is gonna be different for different people because everybody has different goals with their bike. If you're perhaps a triathlete or doing time trial and triathlon, that kind of thing, you might have a really short saddle so that you can move further forward on the bike and you're still within the rules of the race so you can have all that power. As one example, you might perhaps be doing really long sort of touring rides and you might want a nice thick saddle so it's really comfortable, but you still want to get that right width. I know that these ones here are becoming really popular these days. These, I call them power saddles. They're a lot shorter than what a normal saddle would be. We can sort of look at those two there. If I'm being honest, I think the only way to really work out what the right saddle for you is, if you go to your local bike shop, hopefully they're feeling nice enough to be able to lend you a saddle, or perhaps you buy it and they offer you some sort of money back guarantee. because everybody has a different butt. So to quickly sum up everything I just said there, step one is to find out the broad sort of category of saddle that you want, as in like time trial, long distance. Try and work out the category that you're looking for. And then to be able to work out exactly which one the right one is, then we can start to test try a few saddles. We've got a couple of different adjustments that we can make with the saddle here. The first thing is we can go forwards and we can go backwards. If you're chasing performance, you might find it better if you can move the saddle a little bit further forward so that you're further over the bottom bracket. That means that even just under gravity, your legs are going to push down on the pedals a little bit faster and you'll have an even more efficient pedal stroke. Perhaps you might find that the distance from the seat to the handlebar feels really short. So you could move it back just to make it a little bit more comfortable for yourself and feel like you might have a bit more control over the bike. And we can also change the angle of the saddle a little bit. I'm gonna say that that one's a very personal preference thing as well. I find that most people, and I say most as in literally 99 out of 100 people, will have the saddle pretty much perfectly parallel with the floor. So I recommend that you should start with it perfectly parallel and flat with the floor so that you've got a nice neutral position that you can adjust from. If you find that you're sliding off the front of the saddle, or perhaps your pelvis is rolled back and it's curling your back a bit, these could be two pretty clear signs that you need to adjust the angle of the saddle, the fore and aft. One more thing that I might mention is now that we've picked the perfect saddle, you might find that there's a few different price categories within that perfect saddle. So these different price categories, there's really only two things that adjust. It's mostly like the materials. Maybe the top becomes a little bit thinner or the rails get made of carbon fiber. The material is the first thing that will change. And then the second thing is the weight. Nonetheless, you've worked out the perfect saddle that works for you, and now you can try and figure out which saddle fits best within your budget. Even if you buy the entry-level saddle, you will not be disappointed. They should all feel pretty well exactly the same, except the expensive one might be a little bit stiffer, but otherwise they'll feel exactly the same. You won't be disappointed with the entry-level saddle. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you understand a little bit more about different types of saddle. Hopefully you've worked out what the right saddle for you might be. Hopefully the cardboard idea worked for you as well as it did for me. Who knows? If you think that there's anything that we missed, let us know in the comments below. Tell me, what's your favorite saddle as well? I like the Bontrager Aola saddle personally, but let me know what saddle you love. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. See you guys.